Hey guys, Ruckus Gaming here, coming at you with another episode of Tuesday Tips and Tricks. Today we're going to continue with our Who Needs Relics series on the Defect. As always, this is a seeded run, so I'm going to pop that in there, and then we'll get started. I just finished playing this seed one time through, and I'm going again right after with the fresh memory, but I haven't taken any notes or anything like that, just kind of doing it off the top of the dome. Making sure that I can do it first, and then hopefully trying to do it a little bit quicker for you this time. The unfortunate thing about this is that I am actually speaking to you now from the editing room because I have just found out that I did the entire run with my mic unplugged. So I am now doing voiceovers in post, and that might mean that this run is going to be a little bit quieter than others because I don't really want to go all the way through it all over again. Because the first act boss is Hexa here, I took the damage knowing that with Hexa you want to take a little damage so that turn 2 attack is not too bad, and then get a couple quick removes so we can slim our deck down. When you're looking at a path for Who Needs Relics, you're basically just looking for a path that does not have any elites on it. I'm playing on a 0, so there are fewer of them. I don't need the relics, and I'm not going to min-max for gold and card rewards. You're basically just trying to get through it, and sometimes you just want to go as quickly as possible because you may have to do a couple of runs before it comes together. So don't overthink too much stuff. Don't min-max. Just try to make quick, strong plays, and don't worry about 1 or 2 damage here and there, stuff like that. A little bit of more gold from an elite or a regular combat is not going to make a big difference in an A0 run. With that being said, I'm going to just do a little bit of commentary on important things. Obviously, Claw is going to be a big part of this deck. When you don't have scaling from your relics, you need to have scaling from your cards. Obviously, Defect has a lot of scaling for orbs and getting more orb slots, but Claw is law. I got it on 4-1, so now my mindset is basically just to find as much draw as possible, try to play those claws as often as possible, and I want to keep the deck small. I think claw decks really work the best when they're really small. You don't have to have 7 different claws. You can just get 2 or 3 and then draw a lot, get some holograms, and those claws will play themselves very quickly. The problem with having too many claws in a deck is that you're probably going to run into situations where you need to block at some point. And if you're just drawing all claws, might be good in a hallway fight, but it could kill you in a boss or an elite fight if you do have to take one. Cool-headed is great block and draw paired together. I love that paired together, so it's a no-brainer in a claw deck. Generally speaking, with these gremlins, I tend to go for the fat one first, but because a wizard is there, I did want to make sure he didn't do his big, 25, 30, whatever damage it was. And then priority number 2 is the fat gremlin. Once he's taken care of, it's not going to be too hard to take care of the rest. Here, I like taking Go for the Eyes because it is scaling block. The more damage enemies do, the more it blocks for. That's also I'm going to upgrade it. It's going to be very, very nice to have on Hexaghost for those multi-attack hits. And one of the things that I went on a very long discussion about while my mic was not plugged in was that the thing about STS is that I really like the game design and that buffs and debuffs matter. I remember playing Pokemon when I was a kid, and you never really used those status debuffing moves because it was just a waste of time. You just kill it. You didn't need to make it weaker or slower or whatever. You just kill it. Doesn't work like that in STS. You really do need to actually pay attention to a buff or a debuff. It makes a huge world of difference. So do not undervalue that in your runs, no matter what it is. Achievement, ascension, whatever. Getting weak, getting vulnerable is a huge boost to your deck, and figuring out ways to stop it from happening to you is also very, very important. If you know me, you know that Hologram is one of my favorite cards, and I'm immediately going to upgrade it here. I love deck manipulation, whether it's Hologram or a Seek or a Rebound for Defect. Great way to play your best cards over and over and over. Here, this Gremlin fight is a little bit easier than the first one. We don't have to worry about the guy blocking, and after I get that weakened on the front Gremlin, the sneaky one, now I'm turning my attention to the wizard and ignoring basically everybody else until he's dead. Then it's going to be sneaky, shield, and finally mad Gremlin last. As I was just discussing, we want more debuff cards to help with our scaling, so we take the beam cell there and again immediately upgrade it, because being able to get 2 stacks so it carries over to the next turn, if you can play it multiple times in one turn, you get a full combat's worth of vulnerable, and it's going to be huge with those claws. We won't have to play them quite as many times to make them hit really hard. This is our only really bad turn, I think, for this fight as far as incoming damage. We're going to play those claws fast and furious, and Hexaghost is not going to live very long. I'm sure you can pick up on the basic idea of this deck by now, but it is basically drawing as much as possible so I can play all of my claws and my status debuffing cards. I'm not going to worry too much about orbs at all this whole run. I'm going full physical, So I want to make sure that I can focus on playing my best cards as many times as possible. Here again, I do take a little bit of damage, but because it is a 0, anything under a 5, you're going to heal up all the way at the end of each act's boss battle. So you can kind of lean into that and say, well, I can play a little bit more aggressively because I know I'm going all the way back to 100 at the end anyway. Higher ascensions, you do need to be a lot more mindful of saving HP for the next act. You get a potion, and we do end up switching it here for the energy potion, and we take that buffer, another great form of infinite block, essentially. Again, here in Act 2, we are basically just looking for lines without any elites on them. And I make a little mistake here. I was just looking at that shop, but then I realized that there is another shop a little bit later on the other side once I scroll up to it. That's where it is. So I'm going to put off the shop a little bit so I can make some more money, hit up all these combats so I can get some more rewards, more cards. I think hallway combats are more important for who needs relics. You don't want to go to too many events because, as I said, you don't get relics, so that means you're going to lean really hard on cards, especially for scaling. And potions as well. Potions are very, very important. Anytime you have a limited resource or less resources than you're used to, the other resources become that much more important. So making smart potion use, making the most of the cards you're offered, and seeing lots of cards are going to be very important for these Who Needs Relics runs. Obviously, we don't want any more relics, so we're just going to skip that. The nice thing about some challenge or achievement runs is that it makes a lot of decisions for you. You don't have to think really hard and long, you just can't do it. So you have to play within the constraints that you're given. Claw decks sometimes do struggle a little bit with multi-enemy fights. They really need to be played over and over and over again because you've got more than one. It does help them scale, but we do want to try and avoid more fights like this if possible, just because if you've only got 2 or 3 claws and that's your main way of winning, you're only going to be able to do so much per turn, and if you've got multiple enemies, it complicates things. Thankfully here we get, I think, pretty good draw order throughout the combat, and also good attack order from the patterns that they're showing. So I don't have too much problem with this fight, thankfully. Here I don't see anything I really like, don't have lots of powers to play, and as far as block, leap, and cold snap are usually pretty good, but I want to lean more into the draw. So I'm looking for cool headeds. Obviously I've got the FTL, and I want to make sure that all of my card plays are really focused in the same direction. Blocking and drawing with cool headed is just a lot better than a single cold snap, because if I can get 2 cards out of an upgraded cool headed, that could be vulnerable, that could be weak, that could be claw, and just 1 frost orb and 6 damage isn't great unless you've got like lots of orbs or lots of focus. So that's why I skipped cold snap there, even though I would usually take it even maybe in the second act. Scrape is a fantastic card to see when you're running a claw deck, so that's a very easy pick. Here, I'm going to keep upgrading my best cards, which means right now Buffer. I think upgrading rares is always a very, very high priority. If you're ever in doubt, just upgrade a rare. This is going to be an interesting fight because Snecko and Claw don't really mix. It's going to potentially make those claws a lot more expensive and harder to play, which could be very, very painful for us. So we really want to make sure that we're making the best use of our other cards when possible, especially looking out for those 0-cost cards that are being given to us when they're normally a little bit more expensive. 1 or 2 energy claws aren't the absolute worst, and thankfully that Buffer is doing a lot of work as far as blocking for us. But you can see that doesn't exactly play how it should be playing right now, just because of the randomized cost. Definitely taking another cool-headed, and pretty soon we're going to start thinking about upgrading those as well, because having draw 2 on that means it is draw positive. Drawing 1 card is not really that great, you know, something like an unupgraded Pommel Strike or a Quick Slash is kind of whatever, because the card that you drew next, whatever comes after that Quick Slash or that Pommel Strike or what have you, you would have drawn anyway. And you had to pay for it by playing that Quick Slash or that whatever. So it's very important when you are looking to upgrade your cards. If you can see a card that gets draw upgrade, that's extremely important, because it actually means now you are reaching a little bit deeper into your deck than you would have without it. Here you are seeing again the multi-target combats can be a little finicky for claw decks. I think I do get pretty good luck with some of the beam cells and go for the eyes that I draw, and I think the consume is actually doing quite well here. Got it out of a potion, but as I said, using your potions well, they can fill holes in your deck that you don't have, and hopefully I'm not going to have a lot more multi-enemy combats in the rest of this run, because it's just not that fun. And it could have gone very badly for me here. Thankfully, we get some pretty good draw, and we get out of it without too much trouble. Power potion is going to be very helpful, and another upgraded claw. Thank you very much. I'm going to start removing a strike, and then also I'm considering this cool-headed. Steam barrier is going to be free block with that scrape. It's really nice. At the end of the day, though, I don't want to add a lot more. Cool-headed would be okay, but I just want to keep the deck small. 2 cool-headeds in a small deck is more than enough. Skip the ritual dagger because I'm probably going to be killing a lot with the claws once they get really big. I won't be able to just sit there and stall because I don't actually have like tons of block. You know, it's not a heavy focus frost deck that can let you just sit there and do nothing for a while. So you need to make sure that when you're running a deck like this, you just kill as quickly, stick to the plan, and be a little bit choosy with your cards. Here I take the Seek, even though I don't have like a great target for it. I don't have a great rare card or anything like that that's super important that I always need to play yet. But it is also essentially like, just look in your card, or look in your pile, look in your draw pile, get 2 claws. It's 2 claws. Here I love this creative AI. Some boss fights can go on quite a while and really stress kind of like simple, fast decks like these if they can't get the right draw on the right turn, if they don't scale up quite quickly enough. So I'm very happy to get that creative AI here. It does clog up the deck a little bit over time, but in the end it adds a lot more value than the clogging can really deter. So throughout this fight, still sticking to the plan, playing claws as much as possible, drawing, getting debuffs and buffs, but all aided with a little extra scaling from random powers that we're gonna get. And there you have it. Collector is dead. I'm actually not going to take any of these. I don't really need focus or lightning. And even though I do kind of like the idea of AoE damage, losing focus isn't great either. When you've got low focus, but you can play your cards quickly enough to evoke lots of orbs, it does add up. And it is a big difference maker. So I didn't want to take that hyper beam and just completely hamstring myself. Here I do have an act where I'm forced to take an elite. You can see there's no way around it. I'm essentially just looking for the best elite. And it's this one that's after a campfire. You get a shop, you get a couple events. So pretty easy path into that elite is essentially why I chose that one. Definitely don't want the burning elite. And the other way would have given me a second forced elite. So this is the only real option. Again, as I said with these challenge or achievement runs, you have to approach certain things a little bit differently, like pathing. So for who needs relics, just avoid the elites. You don't need to go after them. You don't need to min-max and get, a little bit more extra gold. Maybe it would be nice, but it's a dangerous fight, and it's the most likely fight to kill you outside of the boss fights. So you don't need to take unnecessary risks. Play it safe, get lots of card rewards, and find a way to scale up without your relics. That's the name of the game with these runs. Once we take care of the exploder, this is just going to be a little bit of a kind of annoying fight, because these guys are just going to add dazed into a really small deck. Makes it hard to actually draw the cards that you want. So takes a little bit, but eventually we'll get through these guys. Alright, we'll take a second go for the Eyes Plus here, just because I do love the weak debuff that it puts on. And Echo Form for Sail is very hard to say no to. It's going to make those claws go even bigger, even faster. Thought about the Artifact Potion for a moment, but Liquid Memories is a really nice way, similar to Hologram, except it makes the card you want free. And when you've got a big expensive card like Echo Form, Buffer is also quite expensive. Those are probably the two most important cards in the deck now. You might think it's Claw, but with the very little amount of actual block we have, the Buffer is carrying a lot of weight. We can get rid of the Zap here actually, because we're just not using the Lightning Orb at all. All of our damage is coming out of Claw, and we can also just load up more Frost Orbs and do some more passive blocking. Because we're a physical deck, I did want that Strength Potion right there, and now we just want to see if we can get out. Again, upgrade your rares when in doubt. And we lucked out here. We got Giant Head, which is probably the best possible elite here, especially considering that we have a Claw deck. And we're just going to be scaling up Claws by playing lots of Claws, which is bad news for this guy. We get lucky here with Echo Form on a non-attacking turn. And something that I've noticed about Echo Form decks is that if they don't get to play Echo Form, they're pretty trash. So if you're playing the Defect and you've got Echo Form, even if you're looking at a turn where you're taking a bunch of damage, and you can choose, either play this Echo Form or try to block some of it, play the Echo Form, because if you don't, it's gonna mean that you're not gonna be able to actually get through maybe the rest of the combat, or if you do get through it, the HP that you lost from not getting the value of those 2 cards at the start of every turn is gonna be a huge blow to you. Getting a free card to play, even if you're playing a card that's already free, just playing one more card for free every turn is actually incredibly, incredibly strong. Maybe that sounds a little silly or obvious to say, but I've run into a lot of instances where I was playing a Defect deck with Echo Form, and I think, hey, I have to block this, I can't take this hit, I gotta block, I can't play Echo Form, and it ended up kind of killing me in the short term, if not immediately, because playing 2 cards for the price of 1 is just so strong. Be very careful, don't take that Vajra, and a little more Frost to block. Can't say no. This is something that you're going to start seeing a lot, but I love using Echo Form on Skim, especially with a deck like this, getting a super big hand. Not anything real special on this turn, but in future combats, you're going to see a lot of double-played Skims just to get huge claw hands going. After a little deliberation, I decided on the cool-headed for the guaranteed draw. Scrape has a bad habit of discarding important things like Buffer and Echo Form, so I didn't want to really invest in that. Definitely going to be upgrading that Skim soon, but you can see the power of having a lot of draw in a small deck and low-cost cards. This is why people love claw decks. One thing I wanted to try and demonstrate here was a funny little quirk about Echo Form that most people might not know. But if I could have killed this Darkling with one scrape, the Echo Form charge would not actually be consumed, and I would be able to get a double play on my next card, the second card that turn. Unfortunately, couldn't actually kill there, so I did have to double the scrape, but it was still very useful for getting lots of claws into my hand. You can see me there kind of mentioning that Echo Form buff as I am talking into a microphone that is not plugged in. I pass on that potion of capacity because I just like the liquid memories so much, and it actually becomes very, very important here in this fight. And you'll see why in just a moment, but it's one of those cases where we discard that echo form, and I was like, we need to have that, otherwise one really bad turn could cripple us. So I felt like I had to play that echo form there just to make sure that I was getting my deck to work like it should. Echo form decks, when you don't play echo form, just don't work. And it actually made the rest of the combat just press E until we get out, because I have the same amount of buffers as he has turns to live. I have been saying that focus is not super important for us, and it's still not, but I think it will be a nice thing to have for our final fight against Time Slug. We do have a final, very annoying combat to get through though, and it's a little bit of a long one because I have to be careful about how I attack those thorny guys, especially because I do have to take care of the exploder and the repulsor first. Killing those two means that I can avoid damage, and if I had not killed that repulsor, I wouldn't have been able to draw the necessary defensive cards to take care of the thorny guys. So it's a long and a slow one, but I'll let you enjoy. Here I choose to be extremely cautious and really slow play it because I don't want to weaken myself too badly before I go into Time Slug. So I make the combat last even a little bit longer just so I can really make sure that I can get into that final boss fight with as much health as possible. Rest up for the final fight of the run. Time Slug, show me what you got. Immediately, we want to play both of our scaling potions. We've basically been holding on to all of these just for this fight, because potentially it could be a tough one. Claw Dex and Time Eater, not the best, but definitely doable, and you'll see how. Here, I really like to end my turns on 6 or 9. I often do have turns where I have extra energy or zero cost cards that I leave unspent, because I want to make sure that I give myself enough card plays for the next turn. I never want less than 3. I will always end on 9 if I can't make it all the way to 12. And 6, especially when you've got a deck that plays lots of cards, you can play 6 cards in a claw deck really easily and quickly. So sometimes you may see me ending these turns a little prematurely just because of the Time Slug card counter. I do take a really big hit there, but it's because I knew I had this potion in my back pocket and I could double a buffer for 4 stacks. And when you've got 4 buffer stacks, you really don't have too many problems in the world. I lose a couple right away, but now I'm also pretty well set up. I got the Echo Form going, I've got a couple orbs going, I've got my focus, so now even though there's not a lot, I can play those frost orbs pretty quickly, evoke them for lots of block, as I'm finding ways to play claw just as many times as possible. Rebound was kind of a late pickup, but another very valuable one. The opposite of hologram, instead of going into the discard pile, it just puts that card right back on top. Another very valuable thing to have when you're playing claw. FTL is another card I like doubling. Not a ton of draw, but 1 more draw is better than none. So here I decide just to figure out a way to get to 12 and then try to accelerate this into the end game. He's already almost down to half, so just want to make sure that once he is down to half, I've got really big claws. Steam barriers, very useful. Took a long time for me to really understand why, but especially in a claw deck, when you're playing a scrape, when you're getting multiple cards out of your discard pile with multiple holograms, and you got multiple cool-headed plus with lots of draw, it's really easy to play just lots of cards. And even though Steam Barrier does get weaker over time, ideally your fight won't be lasting long enough for that to matter. And slowly but surely we are getting Time Slug down here. Nice big full hand with that double skim. We're applying our debuffs as we can, and now I just want to make sure that I'm either getting all the way to 12 or finishing on a reasonable number so that my next turn I can have enough card plays. 7 there, not 6, but saw the claw, so I had to play it. Now I'm doing a little bit of mental math. I don't think I can kill him here, but the number 1 priority is scaling up those claws so that once he gets into his second phase, I can kill as quickly as possible. Big damage here, so the number 1 thing I want to do is block. End up going with the cool-headed because it's also got some draw to it. Yeah, there you go. Okay, now I've got it. Weaken for the extra block that way. Now I just trying to find a decent place to leave off. Again, I think I can get to 9, so that's where I want to stop. Even get to full block and keep that buffer around. Very nice. Here I can use that buffer since I full blocked last turn, and I'm just going to soak this 25 and focus on killing. Play those claws to scale, and now we win. Thanks for sticking around all the way to the end. I hope this has been helpful and shown you guys how to possibly go about getting a Who Needs Relics win on the Defect. Obviously, you could go the complete opposite direction. You can go lots of orbs, lots of focus, but when you get a floor 1 claw, you can't really say no to it. If you have any other questions about Who Needs Relics or other achievements, drop them down in the comments. If you want to see some kind of challenge run in the near future, please let me know. I am always happy to take advice or suggestions or criticism from you guys. So thanks for sticking around. Please drop a like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And have a great day. Thanks for watching Ruckus Game.